Tea time, yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We are here for the last show already. We did this morning, we did this afternoon. Now we are in the evening, and I have a returning guest from last season. I have Zachary Hagen in the back, and he's going to be talking about his books, all that good stuff. We got some updates for you, what he's going to be doing, and all that good stuff. We even have maybe a puppy joining us for this stream. So if you see a doggy popping up and down, it's Zach's doggy. So let's get started and let's get Zach in here and let's get some updates and let's spill another TEA with Zachary today on Tea Time. So the disclaimer for Miss Liz's live Tea Time shows. Miss Liz myself is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forward dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in tonight's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that the show is not made for you at this time, I will respect those wishes and see you at a later show at a later date and time. And again, all Tea Time shows this year in 2023 are done on a Thursday, unless it's a rescheduled Tea Time, then it's Monday or Tuesday. So I'm going to get Zachary in here and he's going to spill a new TEA with you because he knows the drill. He's been on the show before, so he knows how to spill tea. So Zachary Hagen is a Mississippi-based fantasy author and editor. He lives there with his wife, Claudia, and their dog, Flynn. When he isn't busy writing his next book or working with an editing client, you can often find him working around his neighborhood or hiking. From a young age, he was enthralled with the world of story. From the stories his parents read to him from his blue bedtime storybooks. If you know, you know. To the first two series that he read, The Chronicles of Narnia and a series of unfortunate events. Zachary's taste contributes to develop throughout his years of reading. The influences for his first series, The Eternal Chronicles, including Christopher Paolini, I hope I'm saying it right, J.R.R. Tolkien, and C.S. Lewis, and others. I'll get him to say the names because I'm sure I'm not saying them right. So let me get Zachary in here and he can share those names. And again, I'm so sorry for saying them wrong. Well, welcome, Zachary. Could you share those names? My tongue is just not
Sure.
working right.
Oh no, it's fine. It's Christopher Paolini, who is the author of the Inheritance Cycle, and J.R.R. Tolkien was the author of The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that's where it was. I was like, I know these names from somewhere. Where do I know them from?
Yeah, but no one. Well, shouldn't say no one, but you don't often see them in print, and they can be tricky to read out loud, for sure.
Right. My tongue is just doing this tongue twister thing. I had a candy earlier and I think I'm having a reaction to it. I'm not sure what's going on, but my tongue is just
Oh.
twisted today. So it's tongue twisting day, I think. So Zachary, it is an honor to have you back. And like we were saying before the show started, I had to watch at a time because we were talking and getting carried away. And I was like, oh, shoot, we got to go live. So Zachary, what has happened since you've been on Tea Time last?
Yeah, so since last year, I got through another year of teaching, which was great. I'm starting another school year now. I am just about done. I am one semester away from finishing my master's degree in education, which is fantastic. And I am putting the finishing touches on my fourth book, Eternity's Edge, and that will be coming out this December.
Ooh, I was wondering what the last book would be called. I like it, Edge.
Actually, the last book will be Eternity's End, but that one will be coming out next year.
Next year. So we'll have to have you back again.
Absolutely. I'm excited for that one. I get to give Elior and his friends a happy ending, which they have more than earned at this point.
So give us a little reminder of the books, since we might have some new listeners tonight that didn't hear you last season on Tea Time. So give them a little bit on each of the books.
Sure. So Eternity's Well is the start of the series, and I mean, it's the beginning. If the three main characters, Elior, Opal, and Nyx, all have a tragic loss that they're dealing with at the beginning of the book. Siblings, parents, best friends gone. And suddenly they have to find this magical well, which they believe has all the answers to their problems or has some way of finding solutions. In the second book, it picks up right where the first leaves off, and they found the well, but they're going in search of those answers. They're looking for the answers that came from their first journey. And in the third book, I had to remind myself what that was because I was about to give you a synopsis of the fourth book rather than the third.
Sometimes, right, we forget and we're like, oops, nope, back it up a bit.
Right. So the third book is all about, so Eternity's Refuge it's a lot more political. Tariq, the villain of the series, has taken over the world, and they're kind of fighting back in a sense, but still trying to pursue other goals as well. And the fourth book, the one that's coming out in December, Eternity's Edge, it's the setup for the end. And that's about as much as I think I can really say about it right now before the pre-order goes live. But if people want more of a synopsis, as soon as the pre-order goes live, should be around August 23rd is when that will officially be on Amazon Marketplace. They'll be able to see the full synopsis and what the publisher wants everyone to know about the book.
So until August 23rd, you have to sit on the edge of your seat and wait and see what comes.
Yes. Unfortunately, I have to follow the rules.
So are you excited about number 4?
I am. I'm really excited about it. It has been probably the most difficult of the books to write. I had an article come out in Books and Buzz today about how killing off characters actually can be it's horrible to read as a fan of a series, but it's difficult as an author too, when you really love a character and you mean for the audience to love them, but their death serves the story. It was hard to write Eternity's Edge, knowing that some of my favorite characters, a couple of my favorite characters, weren't there anymore. But I think that in the end, it's been a good thing for the story. And it makes me really look forward to getting to write the happy ending for my cast.
Well, and I think sometimes we have to close it, right? If we keep it, then it loses its its flavor. So sometimes we have to lose things and close things in order for a new chapter to open. So by closing this and ending this series up, are you looking at doing a new series?
I am. I actually have a book that I have a few chapters written in that I'm really looking forward to finishing. I may release it episodically, or I may release it as a whole book. I'm not 100% sure yet. I've wanted to explore the Kindle Vella platform, but the Eternal Chronicles wasn't the series to put on there. So I have about 7 or 8 chapters written. So it's a good start of an Aladdin retelling from the princess's perspective. The twist is that she is actually the one who finds the genie, and a wish gone bad actually switches her in Aladdin's place.
Ooh. Now that sounds intriguing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's super flipped because she's a thief. She's this really kind of fun heroine, and he is actually the prince. But if anyone finds out, her wish is undone, and she's not the princess anymore.
Ooh.
So she has to keep her secret. So the book is called Aisha's Secret.
It sounds really intriguing. I bet you grandma's going to be the first to grab that one too.
Probably. We should probably clue watchers in. My grandmother always gets the first copy of any book that I write because she tells me that she's my biggest fan. My whole family is very supportive of the work that I'm doing as a writer, and that's a real privilege because not everyone can say that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard being a writer, and it's nice when you have that support, right?
Absolutely.
So, Zachary, you mentioned Kindle Villa. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that in case someone doesn't know what that is?
Sure. So Kindle Vella is a program that Amazon has kind of attached to their Kindle platform where authors can release chapters or episodes of stories. And usually that's every 1 to 2 weeks that they'll release a new episode. And so you can read things episodically.
So it's almost like a thriller, right?
No, there are actually like full stories on that platform that are written for that platform. So it's almost like reading a TV show almost.
Oh.
So a new episode comes out every week. You get to read it, watch it, and then the next chapter comes out the next week until the book or the series is done.
That's really cool. I'll have to look into that. There's so many platforms for books out there, but you want to get on the right platform, especially when you're writing in a certain genre. You want your books to highlight on platforms that are based on those genres, right?
Right. Yeah, so I'm exploring that one, but I have another idea that would work well for it as well. I'm looking at possibly doing sort of I have an idea for a comedy sort of thing called White Raven, where a human family moves into a paranormal neighborhood that they don't realize no one else in the neighborhood is human. And so everyone else has to hide who they are. And I think of it sort of as a Stepford Wives meets Gravity Falls meets oh goodness, I'm having a hard time thinking of a comedy show, but it so very weird but very lighthearted at the same time.
So like the 70s show?
Yeah, like the 70s show. So Gravity Falls.
I was like trying to think of something funny. I was like, what?
Yeah, that would be good. Or not quite like Friends, but maybe sort of in those lines. Ensembles. So I want to explore that. That might work better for Vela than Aisha's Secret would, but I'm excited about both those projects. I also have a couple sci-fi books that I'm looking to write. Of course, I have some faith-based ideas as well, since the Eternal Chronicles was a faith-based fantasy series. But I'm excited for what comes after Eternal Chronicles, for sure.
So, Zachary, if I remember right, you got into fantasy because of bedtime stories with your parents, correct?
That was partially. I think that I got into writing in general because of my parents. They've always been reading to me. There have always been a lot of books in the house. My parents had jobs that had us moving around as a kid, when I was a kid, quite a bit. And I remember just most of the packing was books and books and books. So the written word has always been a big part of my life.
So you've been packing books and books and books, and now you're moving and you're packing books and books and books. So there's a pattern here. Like
there's a pattern. Hopefully my next move will keep us stationary for several years. But you never know, especially in the world of education, unless you are working in certain aspects of that. Oftentimes that requires some shifting, particularly for the school system that I work for, because I don't work for the public school system. I work for a private school system, and because it's so tight knit, occasionally the students need to change a parent. Now
you got the tongue twister going
yes,
on now.
occasionally the students need to change. Occasionally the teachers need to change. I think that we only have about 22 staff members at our school, so occasionally changes are just necessary to keep life going. My superintendent put it one way, like, just occasionally your clock strikes midnight and it's time to go, because you can outgrow a certain situation, and I think it's harder to do that in a larger school than it is in a smaller environment, just because in a larger school there's so many different people and there's so many different students that you can interact with. But we are a very small private school. I think we have 70 to 80 students this year.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we're
It's a small school.
It's very small, which is great. Our teacher to student ratio is fantastic. I'm very proud of the work that we're doing here. If anyone is it's actually a private boarding school, so if anyone is in the area around southern Mississippi, if you have a grandchild or a niece or nephew that you want to get them out of the public school system with great teacher ratios and lots of fun opportunities, I teach at Bass Memorial Academy. I'll give a little plug for them. And I'm really excited about this year in particular. So we've put a lot of work in over the summer to make sure that the year is going to go well. And I'm excited about really everything that we've done to make this a great school year coming up.
Well, and I think smaller schools, you have more time with the students, right? You can build that relationship and understand them a little bit more. The children that are felt left out because of the larger school environments, the teacher doesn't have time to get to 30 students, where they have time to get to maybe 10 or 12 kids.
Right. I think my largest class last year was 20, and that was weird. That was weird to have a class that big. My smallest class actually only had one student in it.
Oh.
Yes. So I taught all the math classes and physics last year, and my physics class only had one student, so he got all of the attention.
Wow. Well, yeah, there was nobody else. There was only one student.
Nobody else. But yes, it gets really fun because I'm so personally involved with each of the students' progression through my classes that I can really understand exactly what they need. It gives me the time and the ability to actually do full. I know that education is part of your platform, but in case someone doesn't know, differentiated instruction means being able to kind of split that attention in ways that actually target students. And because I have such small class sizes, particularly with math, it makes it so much easier to actually help students who struggle and to get rid of that math anxiety that so many people have.
That's what I got. I loved maths when I was younger. Now I'm like, oh, what is this thing doing to me?
Right. So my goal is, especially for my students that come in really, really hating math, because I have one of my classes is a remediation class for students that didn't pass 8th grade math. And so we do a lot of work to actually help them be ready for high school math. And sometimes that does mean teaching them what addition is. I had students last year who didn't understand how to take two numbers and combine them.
Oh,
So yeah, it was pretty bad.
what grade is this?
That was 9th grade.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So sometimes it's a lot of work. But because that class, my remediation class had 7 students and I had 80 minutes a day with them. So students who really needed help got help, and I think that's what I really enjoy about teaching in private schools, is that I have never had more than 25 students in a given class. And if I have 25 students, it's because that's a class that can handle that many, and they're all meeting the challenges for that section. They're ready for the class. So smaller class sizes are usually the classes that need the extra attention, and that makes it a lot easier.
So what's the difference between private school and public school?
So it'll depend on the school system, but for our system, we're a faith-based institution, so we do teach Bible classes as part of the core curriculum. But there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of accreditation for us. Some private schools aren't accredited, and that means that when those students graduate from high school or graduate from 8th grade, they have to take some sort of placement test to meet the criteria for either entering high school or college, such as the GED or some other kind of placement test. So if it's not accredited, they treat it almost like homeschooling. For us, we are accredited through the Adventist accreditation body, which is, aside from the Catholic school system, it's the largest parochial school system in the world. So, and it's all standardized. So all of the schools in the entire North American division, so that's everywhere from the southern point of Texas all the way to the northernmost point of Canada, we're all on the same page in terms of standards, textbooks, everything like that. Some schools may have different textbooks just because they update things on a slightly different cycle. But we're fairly involved in keeping things the same, just like the federal education level does try to standardize things. So we have a set of standards that's very similar to Common Core, but it's sort of rewritten so that it's more tailored to what students actually need and for our smaller class sizes, because generally, I think our largest schools have maybe 800 to 1,000 in them, but that's going to be pre-K through 12.
Cool.
And our school is only 9 through 12, so we have a much smaller population there. We're also in a more rural area, and a lot of our students are actually boarding because of that. So we have dorms, and I think that you just get a more personalized experience in private versus public school, because with public school, everything is so standardized without any sort of flexibility. The teachers have to be teaching, or teachers teaching the same grade level or the same subject. They're supposed to follow the exact same lesson plan all the way through, where you could go into any history teacher with the same grade levels classroom and they should be on the same page of the book, which is almost impossible to do. And so it takes away the joy and the creativity out of teaching. For us, so we are moving towards a fully standards-based model, and we'll be there by 2025. But with that, we have to teach the same standards, but we can do that in a lot of different ways, in a lot of creative ways, which I love. I love doing that. Obviously, I'm a very creative person, and I'm excited about the process of transition. I'm actually speaking on an aspect of standards-based learning in a national convention for our school system next week.
Oh, well, congratulations on that.
Yeah, I'm super
And I really
excited.
love that you got such a small school, because I come from a small northern town. Like where I live now, it's a city. It's in the middle of Montreal and Ottawa,
Mhm.
in Cornwall. But I come from a northern town, and our school, I think from grade kindergarten to grade 8, there was maybe max 300 students. So it was like maybe 20 kids per classroom, and some of the classes were divided, so you had like grade 4 and 5 together, or 6 and 7 together, depending on how many students you had, right? So I like the smaller environment, but I've never had private schooling, so I'm always curious on how they teach. Like, is it the same criteria as the public school? And you're telling me it's not. You follow a different
Well, it's similar. We're not teaching totally different things. I would say that oftentimes we can go more in depth than the public school can. And because we're not part of the governmental system, we're totally apolitical, or at least that's the goal.
yeah.
The goal is to keep politics of any kind out of the classroom. And one thing that I'm really proud of is the fact that students are being sent to us because their parents have certain values that they want upheld in their students' education. And they're getting to vote with their dollars to make sure that that happens. It's not political values, because we have people from both sides of the aisle here, but they feel very strongly about paying the extra money to get a faith-based education with Christian values. And while that may not be for everyone, I'm glad that it's an option for people that want it.
I think it's a nice option for people that want it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We should all have that right to have education in different ways and that feel comfortable to us and our families, right?
Absolutely. And
I believe on.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Zach.
Sure. So, and I think it's just great that we have so many different ways of becoming educated, and as long as it's accredited, which we are fully accredited, both state and through other accreditation bodies. But I mean, having different educations, even if it's just slightly different, gives you a little bit more diversity of thought in the professional arena later, which I think is great. People should think slightly differently, because you get more creativity and you get more innovation when when there's slight conflict between the ways that people think.
Yeah.
It really drives that push for innovation.
So, do you use any of your books for lessons in your classes?
So I have in the past. Right now, because I'm teaching math, it doesn't really fit. But I have used my books previously. 2 years ago, I was teaching English, because I'm certified in basically everything except biology and history. But I did use Eternity's Well in my freshman English class 2 years ago.
And did the students enjoy that?
It taught me a lot about my target audience. I'll say that.
Oh.
A few of them really enjoyed it, but I think that I also realized that I was writing more for maybe slightly older teenagers or even college students. So I let the characters kind of age up a little bit in the series because of that. Like, I don't think it's a major spoiler, but in the fourth book, the main character gets married because I felt like that was relevant more to the people that would actually enjoy the book. My freshman English class, they got into it finally, but also, and it's a criticism I've heard a few times, and I get it. But the first 5 or 6 chapters of Eternity's Well can be confusing, just because I have a 5-book arc starting there, and I have to introduce the main cast, and there's no other way to do that than to jump back and forth between their points of view in order for them all to be involved in some way. Because otherwise, you're getting introduced to characters and you know nothing about them, and there's a bunch of exposition because they have to tell the main character who they are. So I did it the best way that I could. I don't know that I will ever have such a large cast again unless I can figure out a way to already have them know each other at the beginning of a book. Because having to pull them from different parts of the world and bring them together created admittedly, if you don't know that that's what's going on, the first few chapters of Eternity's Well can be confusing.
But it takes time to build, right? Like, you have to put the story out there, and until people understand the story, you have to build the characters. You have to explain who the characters are, right? You can't just pick up a book and, oh, this is who this is, when you've never read it before.
Exactly. Thankfully, none of the other books have had that criticism, but I also think it's because the cast already knows each other. Elior, Opal, Nyx already know each other. They made a few new characters every book, of course, but it's nothing so drastic as having to reintroduce the cast to each other every book, which is a lot. I think that it might have been easier in a way for each of the books to have, or each of the main characters to have some sort of prequel beforehand. But that, I think that kind of thing would have required a lot of forethought and building an audience for each of those characters and then bringing them together. So I don't know. That might be something to think about if I ever have the opportunity to make it into either a television series or a film. I think that trailers for each of the characters would be probably important so that I didn't have to spend so much time on exposition at the beginning of that film or series.
So how many characters do you have?
The main cast is comprised of 4 characters. So it's Elior Barvadani. He's the main character. Opal Stronghand, Nyx Cascada, and joining in the second book is Nereza Khan.
Ooh. Where'd you get that name? I like that name.
I think I was looking at the name generator in Scrivener because I had to name this character and I needed it to sound a little bit more ethnic, because she was from a different part of the country than Elior was. And I wanted it to be a little bit different.
I like that name. That's different. I love different. Like, everybody that knows Miss Liz knows I love different, right?
I love different names too. My wife and I have already picked out all of our kids' names, and none of them are things that they'll ever be able to find a mug for.
That's the only thing. When you get original like that, then you go and look for a keychain or a mug or something, and you're like, oh, I can't get that.
I know, but the great thing is now that 3D printing is available, they can get something custom. They just won't get the pre-printed stuff.
Right? So, Zach, any plans of children in the future?
Yes, we would love to have. I think we've said we'd like 4.
Oh, number 4, and you have 4 characters in the first book.
They won't be named after the characters.
So does the number 4 mean anything to you?
I don't know that it has. Maybe not consciously, maybe subconsciously. I'll have to think about that. I don't know that I've never ever really put that into much thought, but maybe. I mean, my nuclear family growing up had 4 people in it. For the longest time, passphrase for everything for my mother was the Hagen 4. I don't know, maybe it has actually some significance in that sense. It feels like family to me.
Interesting. Right? It's amazing how numbers and colors and all that stuff click in, and then we're like, I like this. So Zachary, I asked you your favorite color and you gave me turquoise.
Yes.
I was like, is that really Zachary's color?
Color of my couch.
And color of my scarf. So I did get good. I was doing good. Awesome.
Oh, I
So
love
why turquoise?
It is a combination of both blue and green, and both of those are just so calm, so peaceful.
Calmness.
And turquoise is actually the color of the ocean in the Caribbean, and my family is from Cuba, and I love the water. My ideal vacation always involves water in some way. My wife and I went on a cruise for our honeymoon. It was one of the best decisions we ever made. We loved it. And it obviously it's a brighter kind of turquoise than the couch, but the waters, especially off the coast of Mexico, Cozumel, just sparkle with that. And I just love it. It feels very beachy, very calm. It's peaceful. So I really love the color.
That really makes a lot of sense, because you say that's where your family's from, right? So it reminds you of home and family, just like the number 4, right? It brings you back to family. You just never know what brings you back to family, right? Colors, numbers, books,
Absolutely.
So I want to get your tea now, Zach. I think it's a good time to get your tea. So if I give you the TEA, what 3 words are you giving me this time?
Oh, goodness. So this year, teaching, entrepreneurship, I think that's how you say it. And, oh goodness, it's on the tip of my tongue. It'll come to me here real quick. Assent or agreement.
Ooh. Now give me a little bit why those 3 words.
So teaching, because I've been very lucky this year to really find my stride and my passion for teaching. My master's in educational leadership has certainly helped with that. And I've gotten to do research in that field. I'm becoming a trusted expert in my circles, and that's a really good feeling. And I love what I do. Entrepreneurship, because my wife and I started a soap business at the beginning of this year, which was exciting. So we sell natural soaps with our business, Raelius Luxury Soaps and Bath. And I love the products. I use them myself, and a lot of my skin problems have cleared up because of that, which is great. And of course, running the publishing business still. And assent or agreement, because I feel like, especially, well, professionally, I feel like I agree with more people now, and I've hit a good stride with coworkers, but also I feel like the first 3 or so years of marriage, you're really starting to just really get to know your partner. And my wife and I are about to enter our 4th year of marriage here in a couple months. And I just really feel like we're on the same page all the time. We hardly ever fight. And I feel very lucky to have found my person. And we are, we push each other, don't get me wrong, but
that's a good thing, right? We need that push in a relationship.
yes, but we're always on the same page. We're always, even if we have a minor disagreement, our hearts are always in the same place and we're going in the same direction. And if we veer off course, the other one pulls the other back on, and we're back on board together again. So I feel very lucky, both professionally and personally, to have those things meshing very well.
But I'm glad that you brought that up, because for the listeners out there, relationship is a job. It's a work. It's making sacrifices and negotiating. A couple weeks ago, I had Linda and Charlie Bloom on, and they talked about relationships, and it's a struggle to know each other, right? Because when you first meet each other, you're really attractive and really, oh, I like this about you, I like that about you. And then you get together, and then you start dating, then you start living together, and then it's all nitpicking things, right? Oh, you put the toothbrush the wrong way, or you didn't put the toaster crumbs are all over the counter.
Right.
You find little things. And like you said, now you're getting into year 4, and you're like, we're balancing ourselves out now.
Yeah, I mean, we have a very unique situation because we've known each other since we were 15, I believe. So we've known each other. Was it 15? It was either 15 or 16. So we've known each other for almost a third of our lives.
Wow.
We met in high school, and it's been a minute since high school. So.
Wow. That takes a lot of courage, and a lot of hard work, because you're completely different when you're in high school compared to an adult, right? We go through these transformations, and we're like, oh, well, we can do that, when we were younger. And then when you get older and you get married and you become in a relationship and partnership, and that, then it's, oh, I can't do that anymore. I could get away with it when I was younger, but now, she's got me there, or, oh, he's got me there,
Yeah, well, we dated and we broke up in high school, and then we got back together after her ex-fiance broke it off with her. So she actually got engaged twice in 1 year. So, because when we got back together, we knew that this time it was right. We weren't ready to be together when we were teenagers, but in our early 20s, when we got back together, it was right.
So your characters that are in the book, Zachary, do they have relationships? Are they like husband and wife? Are they like how are the characters joined together?
Yeah. So in the first couple books, in the first book, there's really nothing going on except the story. But my students actually did influence the second book quite a bit, because I was writing Eternity's Mirror while I was teaching Eternity's Well to them. And I had one student say, is there going to be any romance in the second book? That would just be fantastic. So I was like, maybe, I don't know. I didn't really think of that being a focus, but I decided to include it because the student wanted it. And I was like, if they're going to be potential readers, I want to do things that readers will enjoy. And so there was a romance. There was a main romance, I should say, in the second book. And for actually, the characters do all end up having some sort of romantic tie. And Elior does get married at the beginning of book 4. Actually, there's a lot of book 4. I get to kind of explore the differences between a relationship that has a really solid foundation and makes sense, one that doesn't make as much sense but still kind of works, but there's conflict. That one I'm going to be testing a little bit. And I also have on the other side of things a very abusive and controlling marriage in there. So it's really fun to explore the politics of world government, as well as the dynamics of different kinds of relationships, because some people really are ready to be married. Some people kind of rush into that, and that breeds, okay, we're committed now, what do we do? And then there are people who get married for the absolute wrong reasons, and it backfires in large ways. So, and I think it's important, especially for young readers, to know that marriage isn't just one thing. I think that there is an ideal of what it should be, but a lot of that depends on where you're coming from and why you're getting married, and the person you are and the person you're getting married to. So much of it depends on all of those factors, and healthy marriages can come from someone rushing into it, but it takes more work.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of more commitment, I think, a lot more emotional toughness than knowing that you're ready for a marriage with someone that you already know and love. So I get to explore some of that in book 4. And it's an interesting dynamic with the characters, because I feel like, they were in their late teens in the first book. And now they're in their early 20s, and they're different people than they were. And I think that that's an interesting dynamic to kind of grow up with the characters in a way. Because when I first wrote the books, or first wrote Eternity as well, when I started it, I was 20, 21, I would say.
Oh.
And so I wasn't far off from where Elior was, because I left it alone for a little bit and finished it during my first year teaching. But especially coming back to those characters later, and then kind of having the perspective of growing up a little bit and having to do some growing up myself, it was interesting kind of seeing how that dynamic changed. I don't think that I realized how much of a relationship that authors have with their characters. And maybe that's not something every author experiences, but it's definitely something I've experienced, where they feel very familiar. They feel like real people to me.
Well, you have to have some form of relationship, right, with your characters, because you want the readers to know that you're the one that created them. So you have to have some form of relationship with them, right?
Right. I heard one author describe it once, and I wish I could remember who it was, or I would give them credit for the quote of the idea. But he said something about how each character is like a piece of the author's soul that they break off. And I thought that was just so poetic. And it's something that an author, of course, would write, because it's a lovely poetic device to use, and it feels very true. I see so much of different parts of myself in the characters. It's almost like putting a magnifying glass on my personality. With especially with Elior, Nyx, and Opal. A little bit less with Nereza, because I designed her probably more in reference to my wife, probably.
So see, there is some relationship. So you've used a little bit of you. So maybe it's a part of you that wants to come out, Zachary, and you're putting it into these stories. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to slide my wife in there too. You just never know the storyline or why people write books, right? And why fantasy of all genres?
It was my favorite thing to read growing up. The Chronicles of Narnia, The Inheritance Cycle, and a few other books just really resonated with me. I think the other thing that I really do want to explore is dystopian sci-fi, because The Hunger Games was a major thing that I was very into as a kid. Or I guess a teenager was when I was into it. But I think just fantasy, anything can happen, because you have the really traditional fantasy with Lord of the Rings, but then you have Harry Potter on the other side of it, and you have urban fantasy, and then you have my books that combine elements from a lot of different subgenres of fantasy because it's a modern world, but it has some medieval flair, and it's Christian fantasy, so it has a lot of symbolism in it, and so it's a layers and layers and layers of different things, which I think is a lot of fun.
It almost sounds like the onion, peeling the onion back, right?
Yes. I was on a different podcast earlier this week, and I was telling him, I think that people will be able to get things out of Eternal Chronicles for a long time because there's so many Easter eggs and things that you can find in there depending on your own perspective, because there's a lot of different references. I'll give a freebie to the listeners of your podcast, like the city that the wind spirits, the Venti, live in is called Isengard, which of course is a play on Isengard from the Lord of the Rings series. So I've hidden a lot of things like that in there, and if people find them, they will find a lot of the things that I'm interested in and maybe some of my favorite either video games or TV shows or books, or lots of different things, lots of Easter eggs in there to uncover. They're not all as obvious as that one, but there's a lot of references.
So what message you want to give the readers about your books, Zach?
The books are about life. They definitely have a moral and a religious purpose because that was on my heart when I started the series. But they really are about life and how it moves and all of the intricacies of the human heart, on the personal, on the familial, on the romantic levels. And it's so much more than just a young adult fantasy book.
So even the grandparents can listen and read this, right?
Even the grandparents can listen and read. I'm looking forward to, hopefully, audiobooks will start coming out for them this next year. That's probably going to be a project for that, because I got told so many times, you should read your own books. You have a voice for it. And I was like, okay. So I bought all the equipment, and I just haven't had time because I'm trying to finish writing them.
Right, there's so much to do when you do an audiobook that people don't realize, right?
There is. So next semester, when I'm done with my master's degree, I will have, hello, sweetie. I will have a little bit more time to devote to actually recording in earnest my my audiobooks. But sorry, what was that? You cut out a little bit. No, sweetie, sit down. Sit.
And we're starting to have some worms that are glitching and pulling me in. We do have a little bit of thunder in the background. We do have a tornado warning in my area, so we might just
hear you again.
Off or pop on. But so far, we're safe and everybody's doing good. So
I'm glad. I'm so glad you're safe.
Well, and I'm so glad to have you back as a guest, because I'm always intrigued by my guests coming back and doing updates in person. I can do updates with a write up and a picture, but having you face to face again and seeing the transformation in 1 year, like I believe you had boxes behind you the last time I had you on, because I think you had just moved.
I did. I had just moved. There were boxes, I think, in the background.
Yeah, because this is a different background, because I remember you being on the other side of the room.
I was actually I was in our dining room, I think, last time, but stuff is going on in there in different projects, so I moved out to the living room, which is a lot more comfortable, and it's cleaner right now.
So any final words you have for the listeners today, Zach?
Christmas is coming, and so is the fourth book. So if you're if you or your grandchildren or your kids love to binge read all 4 books, and then they'll get to read the 5th book here, hopefully next summer. So
is that when you release all your books in the summertime?
usually I look at summer or holiday. So last book came out in November. This one I need a little bit more time, so December. But yeah, I try for summer and holiday releases because it seems like that's when people are really book shopping for other people, and I think they make great gifts. So
Right? We need to read more. We need to really open the imagination, you know.
absolutely.
So go out and grab Zach's book. So the book 4 is coming out August 23rd, correct?
August 23rd is when the pre-order will go live.
Okay.
It will probably officially release on December 20th, but that's tentative until the publisher officially makes a decision, because I would love to make that decision myself, but because I own the publishing house, but I have other people that are involved in making those decisions as well. So
pre-orders August 23rd.
August 23rd, the official release date will be made public, and the synopsis will be there. The cover will be there. Should be the 23rd.
Awesome.
That's what we've been saying.
It's going to be really cool. I always look forward to the new books as well. Last year, that's what I did, is I used all of my tea time guests for Christmas gifts. So anybody that had books or clothes or chocolates or any of that good stuff, that's where Miss Liz did her Christmas shopping. So I'll be able to buy your book for Christmas for my teen grandchildren. Yeah, I am that old. I'm 1 year away from the big 50. So yeah, I do have a couple teenage grandkids out there. So I'll have to grab that for sure, Zachary.
Sounds
And
good.
it was a pleasure having you back again. And like I said, when you get book 5 out, you're more than welcome to come back again for another shot and give us a little bit more information. And maybe you'll be in a different location again. You just never know, right?
I might be, actually, if we're looking at that, I might be in the middle of moving. So,
But moving and releasing a book is awesome, right? Because it takes the stress off of moving. You just have the extra stress of book.
Yes. Thankfully, by the time we move, the final book will be done, and it'll just be that marketing segment.
Because there's so much to do with books.
There is.
Well, again, thank you so much, Zachary, for joining me. And I want to give a special shout out to Mickey Mickelson from Creative Edge for having all of his incredible clients join me and have some tea and get that TEA out there, because we're all teaching educational awareness in our own different ways. I will see everybody same time, same place, with 3 different stories, maybe 3 different countries. We just don't know where Miss Liz is going. Next Thursday, 10 a.m., 3 p.m., 7 p.m. If you'd like to know more about Miss Liz, you can check out my website at www.misslizsteatime.com. Check out the shop. There's also a special edition with a collaboration with Marie Harris for Miss Liz's hoodies and t-shirts and pencil cases and all that good stuff. So we do have the pencil cases. If we could get them into the schools, that'd be awesome. Not that one, because that one we're not doing. But there's a pencil case. So, and we all can make a difference, and it's a good conversation. If you have that in your classroom, you can say, well, who's Miss Liz? Well, Miss Liz is the lady that serves tea. So, you know, all that good stuff. So until next week, I will wish you all a fantastic weekend. Make sure to stay safe and make time for family. And you just never know. Grab a book. And if you need to know more about Zachary, you can reach Zachary at Zachary. I'll let you give the website.
Yes, at ZacharyHagenWrites.com, and all of my social links are there as well.
Well, thank you so much. So until then, everybody, grab your teas, serve your teas, be who you are, be unique, be different. And let's just keep spilling the TEA out there to everyone across the world. And if you'd like to be on Tea Time, you can check out Miss Liz, or give me an email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Until then, I'll see you next Thursday, same time, same place.